Your tongue is sharper than any sword, your thoughts more chaotic than any battlefield. If you can't master yourself, what makes you think you can master the world? The truth is, the real battlefield isn't out there, but within your own mind. If you refuse to fight for that freedom today, you'll be a prisoner of your own impulses tomorrow. Have you ever noticed how a thoughtless comment on social media can trigger a storm of regret? Or how the fear of not having enough makes you buy things you don't need only to drown in debt? Procrastination, anger, impulsive spending. These are all symptoms of a single disease, a lack of self-control. When was the last time you felt enslaved by an emotion or desire? The price of not controlling your mouth, your mind, and your wallet is the loss of your inner peace. And it's at that moment that you realize that true freedom isn't what you can have, but what you can contain. If this reflection is already opening your eyes, like and subscribe now, because this is the path of the strong. Now, let's move on to what really matters. Stop for a moment and take a deep breath. Imagine yourself on a silent battlefield where there are no spears or swords, but rather thoughtless words, disordered thoughts, and desires that erode your peace. This is the true enemy. Every time you lose control of your mouth, your mind, or your wallet, it's like surrendering your weapons to the enemy without a fight. The Stoic doesn't fear external war, but knows that the greatest war is the internal one, and that it can only be won with discipline. When you speak without thinking, you surrender your freedom to others. A harsh phrase, a harsh criticism, a thoughtless comment can ignite fires that consume friendships, relationships, and opportunities. Silence, on the other hand, is like a shield. It protects, preserves, and gives you time to act with clarity. Ask yourself, how many times have you regretted what you said, but never what you kept quiet? Your mind, if undisciplined, is like a wild horse. It runs in all directions, expending energy aimlessly, and drags you into the chaos of anxiety, comparison, and procrastination. The Stoic tames this horse firmly. He doesn't run away from his thoughts, but disciplines them. He doesn't allow himself to be enslaved by social media, opinions, or fears, but chooses, with mindfulness, what deserves his energy. And the wallet is a reflection of character. Spending without measure is like opening a wound that bleeds day after day. Debts aren't just numbers, they're shackles that chain your freedom. Disorderly consumption is a vice disguised as pleasure. The Stoic understands money as a tool, not a master. He knows that frugality is a virtue, and that every coin saved is another brick in the fortress of his freedom. You might think, but isn't it natural to want to talk, think nonstop, and spend? Yes, it is natural. But human nature is not to be a slave, it is to be free. What distinguishes us from animals is not strength, but reason, and reason requires discipline. Temperance is the virtue that transforms instinct into choice. It's what keeps you from reacting with anger, wasting your time, and drowning in debt. Without temperance, you are simply a prisoner of yourself. In the modern world, this discipline has never been more necessary. Social media has turned every word into ammunition. Advertisements have turned every desire into debt. And information overload has turned the mind into a minefield. What Stoicism offers is a shield against this chaos. Not to live without pleasure, but to live with freedom. Not to live without possessions, but to not be possessed by them. Ask yourself now, before you speak, are your words useful, necessary, and kind? When someone provokes you, can you choose silence over an immediate reaction? When standing in a shop window, do you buy because you need it, or because you feel the emptiness of a moment? These questions aren't theoretical, they are mirrors, and before them each of us sees how chained we are to our own impulses. Today, I'll reveal 7 Stoic secrets of self-mastery, 7 keys to protecting your mouth, your mind, and your wallet. These aren't abstract concepts, but practical weapons to face the modern world. If you stick with me until the end, you'll realize that true freedom isn't about doing whatever you want, but about mastering that which could destroy you. Because after all, freedom isn't about the absence of limits, it's about mastering them. The first Stoic secret to protecting your life begins with your mouth. There is an invisible power in silence, a power that many mistake for weakness, but which is actually the greatest demonstration of strength. When you choose not to respond to a provocation, It's not because you have nothing to say, but because you've decided not to surrender your peace to the other. Imagine an adversary who waits for your reaction to feed on it. If you react, you feed him. If you remain silent, you starve him. Silence is an invisible sword that cuts without moving. It is in silence that the superiority of those who master themselves is proven. How many times have you regretted words spoken in a moment of anger? Words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They become arrows that pierce hearts and often cause wounds that not even time can heal. Silence, on the other hand, never leaves scars. When you hold your tongue, you gain time to think, evaluate, and choose clearly. This pause is the difference between a conflict that explodes and a peace that endures. The Stoic knows that every word must pass 3 filters. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it useful? If it doesn't pass these filters, it doesn't deserve to be spoken. In the digital world, this lesson is even more urgent. Social media has turned impulsiveness into a public spectacle. A slapdash comment can tarnish your reputation in seconds, spread like wildfire, and leave consequences for years. Many have lost jobs, friendships, and even families because they didn't understand the weight of a hastily written sentence. To own your silence is to be the master of your own destiny. When you refuse to engage in comment wars, you preserve your energy, dignity, and respect. Silence is, in many cases, the loudest cry. Don't confuse silence with cowardice. Silence isn't about running away. It's about choosing. It's the conscious decision not to waste your weapons on battles that aren't worth it. The coward remains silent out of fear, but the wise remain silent out of strength. This distinction is crucial. When you choose to speak, your words gain weight because they are rare, measured, and precise. As Seneca said, "Nothing is more honorable than to remain silent when the enemy expects a shout." It is in this self-control that you prove the greatness of your soul. Practice silence daily. When you feel the urge to react, make a pact with yourself. Count to 10 before responding. If you still feel the need to speak, count to 20. And if the urge still doesn't pass, step back and let time speak for you. This simple exercise creates a space between emotion and reaction, a space where wisdom is born. It is in this interval that you learn to master yourself. Each victory in this small exercise is proof that you are not a slave to the moment. Ask yourself, what do I lose if I remain silent? Often the answer is nothing. And what do I gain? Peace, respect, and the power not to be manipulated. Every time you remain silent in the face of provocation, you strengthen your inner strength. Unspoken words are like unthrown stones. They remain in your hands, and you decide when and if to use them. This is true freedom, not being driven by impulse but choosing the right moment to act. Consider this. How many conflicts in your life could have been avoided if you had chosen silence? How many sleepless nights could have been spared if you had refused to prolong pointless arguments? Silence is like a safe haven in the face of storms. It doesn't extinguish the external storm, but it prevents it from invading your inner self. When you understand this, you realize that silence is not emptiness, but fullness. It is in it that the Stoic finds his true strength. Therefore, the first Stoic secret of self-mastery is clear. Guard your mouth. Learn to use silence as a tool, a shield, and a sword. Don't let your tongue be your own downfall. Silence, when practiced, consciously not only preserves your peace but also strengthens your presence. He who masters words masters respect, and he who masters silence masters himself. An undisciplined mind is like a dark room where every shadow seems like a monster. When you don't learn to control your thoughts, you become their slave. Rumination is the whip that keeps many men and women chained to the past, memories of offenses, mistakes that can no longer be undone, words that can no longer be taken back. It's like trying to carry a heavy stone everywhere, believing that at some point it will turn to gold. But the truth is, it only crushes your back. The Stoic learns to let go of this stone. He understands that the past is a lesson, not a prison, and that every moment of rumination is a moment stolen from the present. Another silent enemy is comparison. Constantly looking at other people's lives and measuring your own worth by someone else's yardstick is like running a race that never ends, because the finish line moves with every step. In the modern world, social media fuels this addiction daily. showing only the brilliance of other people's lives and hiding their pain. You look at other people's victories and forget your own achievements. The mind, undisciplined, transforms this into envy, frustration, and self-contempt. The Stoic, however, refuses to compete with those who don't exist. They understand that the only valid comparison is with themselves. Am I better today than I was yesterday? Imagine your mind as a wild horse. If you just watch it run, it can lead you to precipices. But if you hold the reins firmly, you can lead it wherever you want. This is mental discipline, not denying thoughts, but guiding them. When rumination arises, ask, is this under my control or not? If it isn't, release it. When comparison arises, ask, does this bring me closer to my virtue or further away from it? If it moves away, let it go. This practice is simple but powerful because it transforms your mind from enemy to ally. Anxiety springs from the same soil as an undisciplined mind. Thoughts that run aimlessly, worries about a future that doesn't yet exist, fears of scenarios that may never come to fruition. Living trapped in the future is as futile as living trapped in the past. In both cases, you miss out on the only time that truly exists, the present. The Stoic doesn't ignore the future, but prepares for it with serenity. He understands that he can only plant now to reap later, and that worrying excessively is like watering soil that hasn't yet received seeds. Exercise your mind like you exercise your body. Every day, take a moment to observe your thoughts without judging them. Ask yourself, am I in control or am I being controlled? This simple mindfulness practice, repeated daily, strengthens your mind like training strengthens your muscles. It's not about eliminating negative thoughts, but about not letting them guide your actions. It's like listening to a crowd, shouting, but choosing who is truly worth paying attention to. Another powerful practice is journaling. Write down your intentions for the day in the morning and, at night, review what you accomplished. This discipline transforms your thoughts into concrete words and words into actions. Marcus Aurelius did this in his meditations. He wrote not for others, but for himself, like a soldier sharpening his sword before battle. By recording your thoughts, you organize them, tame them, and draw from them the power to dominate your mind in silence. Ask yourself, how many hours of your day are spent on thoughts that produce nothing? How many times have you lost sleep over imaginary dialogues, over scenarios that never happened? An unbridled mind steals your energy, but a disciplined mind becomes an inexhaustible source of power. Mastering your thoughts isn't just a matter of peace, it's a matter of survival, because those who lose the internal war lack the strength to win the external battles. Therefore, the second Stoic secret of self-mastery is to guard your mind. Guard your thoughts like a guardian on a wall. Don't allow rumination to imprison you in the past, nor comparison to blind you to your own life. Your mind can be a prison or a temple, and the key is always in your hands. What you nurture grows. What you discipline becomes virtue, and a disciplined mind is the foundation of all freedom. Money isn't just numbers in a bank account. It is often the clearest reflection of a man's character. Some treat it like a master, chasing it at any cost, and others see it as an enemy, spending it thoughtlessly. The Stoic, however, understands that money is merely a tool. It is neither a virtue nor a vice in itself. It is a neutral resource that acquires value according to how we use it. Spending recklessly, accumulating debt, and buying to impress isn't just a lack of calculation. It's a sign of slavery. It's surrendering one's future to a pleasure that lasts only moments. The Stoic views each coin as a soldier who needs to be well placed in the field. If misused, the army loses. If well used, victory is inevitable. Frugality is not avarice, and this point needs to be clearly understood. The miser hoards out of fear, the frugal hoard out of wisdom. The former is a slave to money, the latter is its master. Living frugally means understanding the value of things beyond their price. It means refusing the temptation of immediate consumption and choosing to invest in what truly brings freedom. How often do we see people sinking into debt just to maintain appearances, to maintain an image in front of others? This is the trap of modern society, consuming not out of necessity, but out of vanity. The Stoic knows that there is no freedom in vanity, only invisible chains that tighten ever tighter. An undisciplined wallet reveals an undisciplined mind. A man who can't control his spending also can't control his impulses. It's the same mechanism. The rush to have pleasure now, the fear of waiting, the anxiety to fill a void that nothing material can satisfy. True poverty lies not in a lack of money, but in a lack of control. A rich man without discipline can lose everything in an instant. A simple but frugal man builds a life of stability and serenity. The secret isn't how much you earn, but in how much you preserve and how you manage what you have. Look around. The modern world was built to trap you by the pocket. Advertisements are designed to awaken desires you never had. Promotions make you believe you're gaining something when in fact, you're losing freedom. The system pushes consumption as synonymous with happiness. But happiness isn't found in the latest fashion, nor in the new car that leaves you in debt for years. Happiness is having peace of mind to sleep without the shadow of pressure. It's having the freedom to choose without fear of tomorrow. The Stoic knows that every expense is a choice for the future, and that every debt is a renunciation of freedom. Practice frugality by starting with simplicity. Ask yourself before every purchase, do I need this or just want it? Then ask yourself another question. If I had no one to show it to, would I still buy it? These two questions unmask almost every impulse to consume. Because we often buy not for the object itself but for the approval of others. This is the cruelest trap, going into debt to sustain an image. The Stoic lives not by images, but by substance. He prefers the solidity of a quiet life to the fleeting glitter of a luxury that enslaves him. Another valuable practice is the tomorrow test. Before spending, imagine yourself looking at that same purchase a day later. Ask yourself, would it still make sense? Would it still seem necessary? If the answer is no, let it go. Time is a powerful filter, and often a simple postponement reveals that the impulse was unfounded. This discipline transforms you into the master of your finances. Each time you resist an unnecessary purchase, you strengthen the wall of your freedom. Every coin saved is another brick in the construction of your independence. But frugality doesn't mean living in eternal deprivation. The Stoic knows how to enjoy what he has, but without becoming dependent on it. He knows how to appreciate a simple meal as if it were a banquet, because he understands that true wealth lies in gratitude, not in quantity. He doesn't reject pleasure, but he doesn't allow himself to be enslaved by it. Frugality is balance, neither the excess of greed nor the waste of recklessness. It is the art of living with enough and finding contentment in the essential. Therefore, the third Stoic secret of self-mastery is to protect your wallet, not just as a financial matter but as a reflection of character. Money can be a tyrant or a faithful servant, and that choice is yours. Every expense is a moral decision. Every debt is a surrender. Frugality is the shield that protects you from the modern slavery of consumerism. Remember, the truly free person is not the one who can buy everything, but the one who needs to buy nothing to feel fulfilled. The words that come from your mouth are like seeds sown into the soil of the world. Some blossom into trees of trust and respect. Others germinate into weeds of conflict and regret. The problem is that many speak without realizing that each word is a choice that can build or destroy. The Stoic understands that speaking is not just about transmitting sounds but about creating destinies. One sentence can open doors that change lives. Another can close hearts forever. Therefore, he doesn't waste words. He doesn't fire sentences like blind arrows. He filters, he measures, he chooses. Because he knows that an undisciplined mouth is like an unsheathed sword in a crowded marketplace. It will inevitably inflict wounds. In the heat of emotion, the mouth becomes the first to betray the soul. How many times in an argument have you felt the urge to respond, to prove a point, to launch an even stronger insult? This urgency is the trap that destroys relationships and credibility. Those who speak without thinking believe they are winning the moment, but in reality, they are losing control over themselves. The Stoic, in contrast, understands that silence is an option and that speech should be used as a surgical tool, not as an explosion of gunpowder. They know that the mouth can be both a bridge and a bomb, a fundamental practice. For mastering speech is the triple filter. Before opening your mouth, ask yourself if what you intend to say is true, necessary, and useful. Truth without necessity can hurt. Necessity without utility can be mere noise. Utility without truth becomes manipulation. Only when a word passes through these three filters is it worthy of being spoken. This discipline may seem difficult at first, but over time it becomes a natural habit. The result is simple. Your every word carries weight, carries respect, and inspires trust. We live in a time when many talk too much and listen too little. Social media has transformed communication into a shouting match, where everyone tries to outshout the other. In this noise, the wise man's voice stands out, not for speaking more but for speaking better. The Stoic seeks not quantity of words but quality. He doesn't engage in verbal battles to prove superiority, because he knows that true victory lies in not allowing himself to be drawn into useless arenas. His speech is rare, thoughtful, and precisely for this reason, listened to attentively. Practicing mindful communication also means learning to listen. There is no wise speech without deep listening. The Stoic listens more than he speaks, because he understands that by listening he gains knowledge, and by speaking, he merely repeats what he already knows. He doesn't interrupt, dismiss, or rush. He listens with an open mind and responds only when his words add value. This approach not only avoids unnecessary conflict but also builds solid relationships, because those who know how to listen earn respect, and those who know how to speak clearly earn authority. Ask yourself, how many of the problems you've faced stemmed from a misplaced word? How many misunderstandings could have been avoided with calmer, clearer communication? An undisciplined mouth creates invisible enemies, but a disciplined one builds silent allies. When you measure your words, you convey maturity and self-control, rare qualities in an impulsive world. And these qualities open doors that no brute force could. Practice this virtue daily. In every conversation, practice pausing before responding. Take a deep breath, reflect, and only then speak. You'll notice that this simple pause transforms the quality of your communication. Start noticing the impact your words have. Observe whether they bring peace or conflict, whether they inspire or hurt, whether they build or destroy. This exercise not only shapes the way you speak, but also strengthens the respect others have for you, because those who master their speech are seen as wise, trustworthy, and worthy of leadership. Thus, the fourth Stoic secret of self-mastery is to protect your mouth not only through silence but through conscious speech. Silence is one form of power, but well-used speech is another. When you combine the two, knowing how to remain silent and knowing how to speak, you achieve a rare level of mastery. The Stoic doesn't waste words, doesn't wound in vain, doesn't speak to impress. He speaks to teach, to guide, to inspire, and those who learn this art become masters not only of their own mouth, but also of how the world perceives and respects them. Impulse is a tyrant in disguise. It appears in the form of immediate desire, that voice that whispers, "Do it now, you deserve it, don't wait." And when we give in, we pay the price of regret. It's like drinking salt water in the desert. It seems to relieve the moment, but soon the thirst returns even stronger. The tomorrow test is a simple yet powerful Stoic practice to break this cycle. Before spending, reacting, or speaking, ask yourself one question: how will I feel about this tomorrow? This small pause opens a window of clarity amidst the chaos of emotion. What seems urgent today may prove futile tomorrow. Imagine a conflict at work. A colleague provokes you, and you want to respond immediately, harshly, so as not to appear weak. But you ask yourself, tomorrow, will I be proud of this response, or will I feel like I overreacted? This exercise shifts you from the heat of the present to the wisdom of the future. It forces you to see beyond the emotion of the moment. Often, this insight is enough to realize that the best response is silence or thoughtful speech. The test of tomorrow transforms impulsiveness into prudence, and prudence is one of the highest marks of Stoic virtue. In the financial field, this practice is even more evident. How many purchases have you made in a rush that today seem absurd? The object you so desired turned to dust in the closet, while debt remained like a chain around your ankles. The tomorrow test breaks this spell. By holding back the impulse to buy and projecting your decision to the next day, you see more clearly what is truly necessary. Often, you will realize that the desire was just a flash in the pan, and by resisting, you will feel not a loss, but the victory of having conquered yourself. The same goes for words. Before sending that harsh message, unleashing that scathing criticism, responding angrily, ask yourself, tomorrow will I be at peace with what I said? Or will I have to apologize, regret, and make amends for what could have been avoided? This simple filter prevents countless regrets, because the impulse to speak may last seconds, but the consequences can haunt for years. The tomorrow test is not just a self-control technique, but an antidote to the prison of regret. Practicing the tomorrow test is training your mind to move beyond the short term and see the long term. It's like climbing a mountain and looking at the road ahead. Those who live only in the immediate present stumble over the rocks at their feet. Those who look to tomorrow can deflect, choose, and prepare. The Stoic doesn't escape the present, but neither does he allow himself to be dragged by it. He lives in the now with awareness, but always aligned with the tomorrow. He wishes to build. This perspective gives depth to every choice. In the modern world where everything is designed to capture your attention and push you toward rapid consumption, the tomorrow test is an act of rebellion. It's saying no to the logic of buy now, respond now, don't wait. It's reclaiming the power to decide calmly, without being manipulated by external stimuli. This discipline not only protects your wallet and your reputation, but also strengthens your inner freedom. Because every time you resist the urge, you prove to yourself that you are the master of your life, not a slave to circumstances. Ask yourself now, how much pain in your life could have been avoided if you had applied the tomorrow test? How many conflicts, how many debts, how many harsh words would have been avoided? Think about every regret in your past and realize how almost all of them stem from a hasty decision. If you had given yourself a day, if you had waited, if you had taken a breath before acting, much would have been different. This awareness is painful but also liberating, because it shows you that you have the power to change from now on. Therefore, the fifth Stoic secret of self-mastery is simple yet transformative. Delay the impulse. Place each decision before the mirror of tomorrow and ask if it deserves to survive the test of time. What is true, useful, and necessary will endure. What is merely a passing flame will burn itself out. The Stoic is not afraid to wait, because he knows that patience is the art of separating the essential from the superfluous. And when you learn this art, you discover that freedom lies not in doing everything now, but in choosing what is worthwhile forever. We live in an era where the greatest currency is no longer gold, but attention. Platforms, companies, and brands fight not for your money directly, but for your mind. Every notification, every ad, every suggested video is designed to capture precious seconds of your life. And little by little, those seconds turn into hours, days, years. Digital distraction is the new invisible addiction that erodes discipline and freedom. The Stoic, if he lived today, would not only worry about external battles and wars, but about the silent war against the fragmentation of the mind. Mindfulness is your sharpest sword against this invisible enemy. When you allow your attention to be hijacked, you lose possession of the most valuable thing, your time. How many times have you opened your phone to check a message and before you know it, you've already wasted 40 minutes scrolling through irrelevant videos and news? The mind, without discipline, becomes like a house without doors, where any stranger can enter and mess everything up. The Stoic closes the doors, chooses who enters, and organizes his thoughts. He doesn't live at the mercy of algorithms, but consciously decides where to focus, because he knows that where his attention is, there is his life. Mindfulness is not just a meditative practice, but a lifestyle. It means being fully present in every action, without being dragged down by distractions. When you talk to someone, you don't look at your phone. When you work, you don't get lost in open tabs. When you rest, you truly rest. This discipline creates a rare strength in a distracted world. While many live like digital ghosts, the Stoic is present, solid, rooted in the moment. This presence conveys authority, respect, and a serenity few can comprehend. The practice of mindfulness begins with simplicity, observing your breath, feeling your body's weight, noticing your thoughts without getting caught up in them. But it goes further. It also involves learning to filter stimuli, to say no to excess information. The Stoic doesn't need to know everything, doesn't need to have an opinion on everything, doesn't need to consume everything. He chooses the essential. He understands that the mind, like the body, becomes ill with excess. And the cure lies in simplicity. Fewer distractions, more presence. Less noise, more silence. Less stimulation, more clarity. Digital distractions aren't just a waste of time. They're intentional theft. Every minute spent on irrelevant content is a minute that could have been used to build something meaningful. Learning, working, cultivating relationships, strengthening the body, nourishing the soul. The modern world is designed to seduce the mind, but the Stoic doesn't allow himself to be enslaved by this seduction. He sees the screen not as a hostage, but as a commander who decides when and how to use it. Technology is a tool, not a tyrant. Practicing the discipline of mindfulness means creating rituals, turning off notifications, setting times to check messages, establishing periods of deep focus. It's like building walls against invisible invaders. Each time you reclaim minutes that would otherwise be stolen by distraction, you reclaim pieces of your life. At first, it may seem difficult, but you'll soon realize that the silence of the mind is more pleasurable than any instant stimulus. The serenity of being fully engaged in a task is a treasure that no video or news report can replace. Ask yourself, who controls my attention today? Is it me, or are the machines that surround me? How many hours of my day are truly mine, dedicated to what I choose, and how many have been handed over to distractions? This reflection is tough, but necessary, because there is no freedom without mastery of one's mind, and there is no mastery of the mind without discipline of attention. The Stoic understands that his life follows the course of what he sets his eyes and thoughts on, and if he is not vigilant, that course will be decided by others. Therefore, the sixth Stoic secret of self-mastery is to cultivate mindfulness as a shield against digital distraction. Being present is the greatest act of rebellion against a world that tries to tear you away from yourself every second. By reclaiming your attention, you reclaim your life. By disciplining your focus, you discipline your destiny. And this is the essence of Stoicism, living not scattered, but fully, consciously, and freely, in every moment. Many believe that freedom is doing whatever you want, eating without limits, speaking without thinking, spending without measuring, reacting without considering. But this is not freedom. It is slavery in disguise, because those who give in to every desire are not masters of themselves, but servants of every impulse. The truly free man is not the one who follows all instincts, but the one who can choose which instincts deserve to be followed. Restraint, so despised in modern times, is the highest form of power. It is the bridle that allows the horse to gallop without losing its way over the precipice. It is the wall that protects the city from the invasion of internal enemies. Self-mastery is the key that unlocks the door to freedom. Imagine two people, one who gives in to every desire to buy, to speak, to seek immediate pleasure, and another who consciously controls every choice. The first may seem free, but lives chained to debt, conflict, and regret. The second may seem restrained, but walks lightly, without unnecessary burdens. The Stoic understands that true freedom lies not in living without limits, but in creating boundaries that preserve dignity and peace. Restraint is not imprisonment, it is protection. Those who master themselves do not fear the world, because they have already conquered their most powerful enemy, their own ego. We live in a society that glorifies excess, an excess of words, desires, consumption, and information. Excess is sold as synonymous with abundance, but in reality, it is a source of misery. How many people live surrounded by things they don't use, mired in debt they can't pay, and trapped in self-created anxious routines? Excess doesn't liberate, it suffocates. The Stoic, on the contrary, practices moderation. He knows that less is more, that simplicity is power, that restraint is wealth. It is in the right measure that life's balance is found. Restraint doesn't mean eliminating pleasures, but mastering them. Eating with pleasure, but not to the point of gluttony. Spending with joy, but not to the point of debt. Speaking with intensity, but not to the point of hurt. It is in this balance that freedom is born. Because, contrary to what many think, discipline doesn't take away life, it restores it. Every impulse restrained is a victory that strengthens the spirit. Every temptation overcome is proof that you are greater than the whims that try to govern you. The Stoic knows that his life should not be guided by chance, but by reason, and reason demands restraint. Ask yourself, how many times have you felt trapped precisely because you couldn't say no? Trapped in debt, trapped in arguments, trapped in addictions that started small, but grew into chains. This imprisonment didn't come from outside, but from within. The Stoic learns to say enough not as a renunciation, but as a conquest. Because every time you say no to something that would enslave you, you are saying yes to your freedom. This is the essence of restraint. It's not about losing, but about gaining what truly matters. True freedom, therefore, is silent. It is not displayed in grand gestures, but rather felt in the peace of those who can lay their head on the pillow without regret. It is the serenity of those who do not fear tomorrow because they live today with balance. It is the security of those who know that their choices were not dictated by impulses, but by conscience. The Stoic seeks neither applause nor approval, because their victory is intimate. They have conquered themselves, and this is the only victory that no enemy can steal. Practicing this restraint requires daily practice, in small gestures, in details, resisting unnecessary comments, pointless spending, and momentary pleasure that will cost you dearly later. Each act of restraint is like a brick placed in the construction of your freedom. It's not easy, and it never will be. But nothing great is easy. The Stoic understands that living in moderation is not living less, but living better. Because those who learn to restrain themselves discover that they don't need everything to be complete. They find true abundance in discipline. Therefore, the seventh Stoic secret of self-mastery is the synthesis of all the others. Restraint is freedom. To master oneself is to live without chains. Whoever protects their mouth, their mind, and their wallet, whoever learns to filter words, control thoughts, postpone impulses, focus attention, and live frugally, finds in restraint the key to a full life. This is the ultimate victory, the complete transformation, because in the end, the greatest achievement is not what you accumulate, but what you are able to let go of. And it is in this conscious detachment that true peace is born. When you begin to apply these secrets, something silent and powerful happens within you. It's not a sudden shift like a bolt of lightning striking the sky, but a gradual transformation, like the sunrise that, little by little, illuminates everything around you. What was once an impulse becomes a choice. What was once slavery becomes freedom. The mouth that spoke without thinking becomes the guardian of thoughtful words. The mind that wandered in comparisons and anxieties begins to walk firmly in the present. Your wallet, once hostage to desire, becomes a symbol of responsibility and serenity. This transformation is not just practical, it's spiritual. It's as if you're reborn, not to be someone else, but to finally be your own master. Over time, people around you begin to notice, not because you boast, but because your presence changes. Your calm in the face of provocation draws attention. Your discipline in the face of temptation commands respect. Your ability to listen more than you speak inspires trust. Little by little, you become a silent beacon in a world overrun by chaos. While others drown in conflict, debt, and distractions, you stand firm, like a rock that the waves cannot move. This strength doesn't shout, it doesn't flaunt, but everyone notices its existence and that it is rare. Transformation also changes the way you view life. What once seemed like a reason for anger becomes an opportunity to practice patience. What once seemed like loss reveals itself as liberation. What was once seen as deprivation now appears as a conscious choice. The Stoic perspective sees not just problems, but training for the soul. Every challenge is a chance to prove your serenity. Every temptation, a chance to test your discipline. Every setback, a chance to prove your resilience. This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate life's difficulties, but transforms them into stepping stones that elevate you. Transformation also brings a feeling of lightness. It's like taking off a rusty, heavy armor you've been carrying without realizing it. When you stop reacting to everything, your mind rests. When you stop spending impulsively, your wallet breathes. When you stop speaking without thinking, your heart calms down. This lightness is liberating because it restores the energy that was previously wasted on useless battles. And this energy can now be used to create, love, work, and live with purpose. It's a fair exchange. Less weight, more strength, fewer impulses, more awareness, fewer chains, more wings. And perhaps most surprising is realizing how, by transforming yourself, you inspire others to do the same. Your discipline provokes reflection in those who observe you. Your silence in the face of provocation teaches more than 1,000 words. Your frugality shows that it is possible to live well without excess. Your full presence in the moment reminds others that life is now, not on a screen. This transformation isn't limited to you. You expands like waves on a lake, touching those around you. The Stoic doesn't seek disciples, but his life inevitably becomes a living example. It is at this point that you discover true greatness, realizing that your strength lies not in dominating others, but in dominating yourself. Many believe that power is about controlling people, possessing wealth, or winning applause. But this power is fragile because it depends on external factors. The power that arises from self-mastery, on the other hand, cannot be stolen. No financial loss, no insult, no failure can take it away. It is a silent but indestructible power because it is rooted in that which is eternal, your ability to choose virtue over impulse. This transformation doesn't happen in a single day, but in each small act of discipline, in the silence chosen in the face of provocation, in the expense avoided in the face of temptation, in the thought interrupted before it turns into anxiety. Each small gesture is a stone placed in the construction of your inner fortress. And over time, this fortress rises so high and solid that nothing can knock it down. You finally become what the ancients called invincible, not because you never suffer, but because nothing external can truly defeat you. Finally, you realize that self-mastery is not a burden, but a gift. It doesn't limit your life, but expands it. It doesn't steal pleasures, but restores freedom. It doesn't take away your voice, but gives weight to your words. It doesn't hinder your dreams, but sustains them with clarity and discipline. Self-mastery is the art of living without chains, and this is the transformation that Stoicism offers. By protecting your mouth, your mind, and your wallet, you protect what is most precious, your soul. And in this state of balance, you find the peace that the modern world promises so much but never delivers. When you begin to practice self-mastery, situations that once robbed you of peace become tests that strengthen your soul. In traffic, where there was once anger and impatient honking, there is now serenity. You realize that yelling or speeding won't make the traffic light change faster. At work, when unfair criticism arises, instead of reacting furiously, you choose strategic silence, and this attitude increases your authority. At home, when faced with small provocations that could spark arguments, you choose to respond calmly, and the atmosphere becomes lighter. This practical shift is like changing the lenses through which you view life. Everything remains the same, but you see it differently, and this different perspective changes everything. Over time, you discover that your energy is no longer wasted on pointless battles. The hours that were once spent ruminating on what was said or plotting revenge are now dedicated to learning, creating, and strengthening yourself. It's as if you've given yourself back ownership of your time. Many lie hostage to their impulses, but self-mastery liberates. This liberation is not only mental but also physical. Your body rests better, your breathing becomes calmer, and even your health improves. Because a peaceful mind reflects on the whole being, the Stoic understands that every choice of self-control is also a choice of vitality. This transformation also makes you more trustworthy in the eyes of others. People begin to seek you out, not because you speak louder, but because you convey stability. In the chaos of crises, you're the one who remains calm. In the heat of arguments, you're the one who doesn't lose their cool. This posture naturally attracts respect, because in a world dominated by impulsive reactions, serenity is a rare and inspiring commodity. You become someone who not only speaks wisdom, but embodies it in every gesture. It's at this point that self-mastery ceases to be just a personal practice and becomes a force that transforms your surroundings. And then you begin to notice the impact on your wallet. Where there was once a lack of control, now there's organization. Where there was once impulse buying, now there are conscious choices. You no longer let yourself be seduced by the fleeting shine of the shop window. but instead evaluate each expense like an investor evaluates a seed, asking if it will truly bear fruit. This financial control gives you something few possess: freedom. Freedom to decide, to rest, to avoid rushing around trying to pay off debts that could have been avoided. Frugality, so simple in essence, becomes a source of tranquility and quiet power. At the same time, the way you communicate changes. Your words carry more weight because they're not just flung to the wind, but carefully chosen. When you speak, people listen, not because you shout, but because they know your voice is measured. This not only avoids conflict but also builds alliances. Your speech becomes a tool for clarity, not confusion. And every time you remain silent in the face of provocation or speak firmly at the right moment, you reinforce the image of someone who is not a slave to the moment, but master of their own choices. The transformation also changes your relationship with time. You stop being a victim of distraction and begin to master your attention. Instead of wasting hours on useless content, you dedicate your energy to what truly matters. You discover that it's possible to live longer days without needing to add minutes, because the secret isn't in having more time, but in using it with presence. This discipline creates a rare feeling, the sensation that life is truly being lived, without being stolen by screens, noise, and anxiety. Mindfulness becomes not just an exercise, but a lifestyle. And it's at this point that you begin to experience a peace that no longer depends on the outside world. It doesn't matter if people criticize you, if the days bring difficulties, if money is sometimes tight, your inner strength remains. Because self-mastery doesn't eliminate challenges, but teaches you to face them with dignity. You don't run away from life, but face each situation with clarity. And this generates a quiet confidence, the certainty that, whatever happens, you have within you the weapons to resist. This confidence isn't arrogance, but serenity. It's the firmness of someone who knows they've already defeated their most difficult enemy, their own self. In the end, transformation reveals something profound, that freedom is not a destination, but a daily journey. It's not something achieved all at once, but built with each choice. And the more you practice, the more you realize you don't need external chains to live in peace, because you no longer carry internal ones. This is the gift of Stoicism, to restore man's power over himself, to show that true greatness lies not in conquering empires, but in conquering oneself. It is in this mastery that you find the treasure the whole world seeks, a full, simple, serene, and free life. Self-mastery begins to manifest itself in seemingly small gestures that carry enormous power. When you wake up, instead of picking up your phone and getting lost in the flow of information, you dedicate the first few minutes to silence, breathing, or reading something that strengthens your mind. This simple act changes the entire course of your day because it establishes who's in control, you or the distractions. Similarly, before a meal, you learn to pause for a moment and reflect on the gratitude of having food to eat. This pause transforms an ordinary act into an exercise in awareness. These are discrete practices, but they build the walls of your inner fortress. Over time, you realize you don't need grand rituals to live like a Stoic. Just attention to detail. Before speaking, reflect. Before spending, evaluate. Before reacting, breathe. These intervals, these seconds of awareness, are the true guardians of your freedom, because it's in these moments that you decide whether you'll be a slave to impulse or a master of reason. This constant discipline, repeated day after day, shapes your character like water shapes stone, slowly but unbreakably. And then something curious happens. You begin to surprise yourself. Situations that would once have made you explode now find you silent. Desires that once would have made you spend without thinking now seem irrelevant. Provocations that once would have robbed you of sleep now vanish like dust in the wind. This change isn't just rational. It's visceral. It's as if a new nature is awakening within you. A stronger, more stable, freer nature. What once seemed impossible becomes natural. And this proves that self-mastery is not a distant goal, but a trainable skill. Transformation also creates a deeper sense of purpose within you. Without your mind occupied with regrets or anxieties, there's room to build. You begin to invest time in projects that truly matter, in relationships that nourish your soul, in learning that strengthens your mind. You discover that life, when lived with discipline, is richer, not poorer, because discipline doesn't rob you of possibilities. It organizes them, and by organizing them, it allows what truly matters to flourish. The Stoic understands that the greatest luxury is not having everything, but being able to dedicate oneself to the essential. Another fruit of this transformation is gratitude. When you learn to contain yourself, you realize you already have more than you imagined. Comparison loses its power, envy loses its place, and the feeling of inadequacy disappears. You discover the pleasure of appreciating the simple things: a moment of silence, a good conversation, a walk in the fresh air. This gratitude is not passive, but active. It transforms into energy to live better, to help more, to walk more lightly. And suddenly, you realize that the secret to abundance is not in hoarding, but in giving thanks. Self-mastery also prepares you for difficult days, because they will come. No one is immune to losses, frustrations, and life's inevitable pains, but the difference is that you won't be dragged down by them. Learned silence will prevent you from worsening conflicts. Mental discipline will help you avoid drowning in dark thoughts. Frugality will protect your finances in times of scarcity. Mindfulness will keep you grounded in the present, even when the future seems uncertain. Restraint will give you the strength to endure without breaking. It is in these moments that Stoicism proves most useful, not when everything is going well, but when life tests your resilience. With this continuous practice, you become a steady presence amidst the chaos. Others will look to you for balance, and even unintentionally, you will become an example. Not an example of perfection, but of consistency. Because self-mastery doesn't make you immune to failure, but it does make you capable of learning from it. It doesn't make you cold, but it does make you stable. It doesn't make you superior, but it does make you more human. And this strengthened humanity is what inspires. Because in a world that lives at the mercy of impulses, those who master themselves are seen as true giants. In the end, you discover that this transformation is not an end in itself, but a continuous journey. Every day will bring new challenges, new temptations, new opportunities to practice or fail. But with each silent victory, you strengthen your inner fortitude. And even when you fail, you will know how to rise. Stronger, because you no longer depend on perfection but on perseverance. This is the Stoic life. Not a life without mistakes, but a life with purpose, discipline, and freedom. It is the life of those who protect their mouth, their mind, and their wallet, and in doing so protect what is most precious, their own soul. What once seemed like effort now becomes a natural habit. Silence in the face of provocation no longer requires as much resistance because it has become a reflex. Controlling. Spending is no longer a battle against desire, but a spontaneous choice for those who value freedom. The mind, once anxious and scattered, finds rest more easily. What was a struggle is now routine, and this routine becomes a lifestyle. It is at this point that you realize that discipline is not a prison, but a path to living with ease, as you no longer need to waste energy fighting against yourself. This new life aligns you with what the ancients called eudaimonia, a life of fulfillment in harmony with reason and virtue. You no longer seek pleasure for its own sake, but balance. You no longer seek recognition for its own sake, but coherence. You no longer seek excess, but sufficiency. This shift places you outside the rat race in which many live. While everyone else runs in circles, blinded by desire and comparison, you walk in a straight line, steady, knowing where you want to go. This serenity is rare, and precisely for that reason, powerful. Stoicism teaches that true wealth lies not in hoarding, but in needing less. And over time, this phrase ceases to be a nice idea and becomes a reality in your life. You begin to look at what you already have with eyes of abundance, not scarcity. And this silent gratitude is perhaps the greatest treasure of all. Because when you no longer need more to feel complete, no one can manipulate you, no one can buy you, no one can enslave you. You become, finally, truly free. This freedom is expressed even in your posture. There's a calmness in your gestures, a firmness in your gaze, a clarity in your speech. Those who live with you feel the difference. It's no longer just what you do, but what you convey. Your life becomes a silent testimony that it's possible to live differently, without letting yourself be dragged along by the chaos of the world. You don't need to convince anyone with arguments. because your very presence becomes sufficient argument. You are living proof that self-control is synonymous with strength. And, even on difficult days, this transformation shows itself. When life hits you with losses, criticisms, or unexpected challenges, you don't crumble. Not because you don't feel pain, but because you've learned not to drown in it. Suffering comes, but it doesn't rule. Sadness exists, but it doesn't paralyze. Anger appears, but it doesn't decide. This difference is what separates the common man from the Stoic, because everyone suffers, but not everyone knows how to transform pain into strength. The Stoic doesn't run from pain, but goes through it with dignity, and in doing so discovers that he has become stronger than before. This stance also frees you from the need to prove yourself to the world. You no longer need to win arguments to feel valued, no longer need to buy what you can't afford to feel accepted, no longer need constant approval to feel whole. What was once a wound is now a scar, and each scar tells a story of overcoming. You feel whole, even when the world tries to reduce you. This wholeness is the greatest reward of self-mastery, no longer depending on anything external to feel complete. Ultimately, this transformation reveals a simple but forgotten truth, that life doesn't have to be a constant war against yourself. When you learn to master yourself, you discover a silent peace waiting within you. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, riches, applause, or results. This peace is born of balance, silence, and discipline. It's a peace no one can steal, because it's firmly rooted in your soul. It's this peace that the Stoics called true freedom. And then, looking back, you realize that every exercise, every effort, every small sacrifice was worth it, because now you are your own master. No matter what the world does, no matter what they say, no matter what happens, you have within you a fortress built with bricks of silence, discipline, frugality, attention, and restraint. And this fortress is indestructible. You haven't just learned to protect your mouth, your mind, and your wallet. You've learned to protect your soul. And that is the greatest achievement a human being can achieve. The time has come to understand that everything discussed so far is not just distant philosophy, but immediate practice. Each revealed secret is not an abstract concept, but a weapon you can carry with you today. Silence as a shield against provocations, a disciplined mind as a horse that follows your lead, a protected wallet as a symbol of freedom, filtered speech as a bridge to solid relationships, the test of tomorrow as a guardian against regrets, mindfulness as a defense against distractions, and restraint as the key that unlocks the door to true freedom. All of this is now before you, waiting to be put into action. Don't be fooled. Living with self-mastery is not the easiest path. It's much easier to react than to restrain yourself, to spend than to save, to speak than to remain silent, to distract yourself than to focus. But easy things have never built strong men. Discipline has always required sacrifice, but it is precisely from this sacrifice that greatness is born. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without pain, but it offers you the strength to not be destroyed by it. It doesn't promise external wealth, but it guarantees the greatest of all riches, inner peace. And ultimately, it is this wealth that no one can steal. If you've made it this far, you know that listening isn't enough. You have to practice. Knowledge without action is like a sword sheathed in war. Useless. Today you will have opportunities to apply what you've learned. A provocation will arise. A desire to buy something will appear. An anxious thought will try to dominate you. And it is in these moments that Stoicism ceases to be a theory and becomes life. Every victory, no matter how small, is a stone placed in the construction of your inner fortress. Don't wait for perfection, just practice. It is through repetition that discipline transforms into character. And remember, it's not about changing the world, but about changing yourself in the face of the world. Because when you change your attitude, you also change how the world reacts to you. The Stoic doesn't seek to control others, but to control himself in the face of them. And this silent control is so powerful that it ends up influencing, even unintentionally. You become a reference, an example, a beacon. And even if no one realizes it right away, you know, every act of self-mastery is a victory that no one can take away. Now imagine the life you can build if you consistently practice these 7 secrets. Imagine the calm in your relationships, the clarity in your mind, the ease in your finances, the serenity in your routine. Imagine the respect you will command, the trust you will inspire, the freedom you will feel. This is not a life reserved for the enlightened few, but available to all who choose discipline. You have the choice in your hands. Remain a slave to your impulses or become master of yourself. Stoicism has shown you the way. It is up to you to take the steps. Perhaps you're thinking you're still too weak, that you don't have enough strength to change, but it's precisely in practice that strength is born. No one starts out invincible. Everyone starts out fragile, falling and getting back up. The Stoic isn't defined by the absence of failures, but by the perseverance of not giving in to them. The secret isn't in never falling, but in rising wiser, after each fall. This is true victory, learning to use even mistakes as teachers. Failure, when faced with discipline, becomes an ally on the path to virtue. And when death, inevitable for all, finally knocks at the door, you will welcome it without fear, because you will have lived fully, consciously and freely. You will have left behind not accumulated riches, but a legacy of discipline, serenity, and example. You will have shown the world that true greatness lies not in dominating empires or crowds, but in conquering oneself. And in that final moment, you will be able to say to yourself with peace, I was master of my mouth, my mind, and my wallet. I did not live as a slave to impulses, but as a free man. Therefore, keep these words not as a speech, but as a guide. Protect your mouth, your mind, and your wallet, and with that, you will protect your soul. Remember, freedom is not doing whatever you want, but mastering yourself in the face of everything the world offers you. True, victory is not conquering others, but conquering yourself. Start today with a simple gesture, and you will see how each small victory will become a foundation for greatness. Self-mastery is the key, and the free life is the door that now stands open before you. It is up to you to walk through it. Perhaps now you realize that protecting your mouth, your mind, and your wallet isn't about denying life, but about living it freely. True power lies not in reacting to everything, but in consciously choosing what deserves your energy. Tell me in the comments if you've ever faced moments when silence, mental discipline, or frugality turned things around. Your story might be the light someone needs to hear right now. If this reflection resonated with you, share it with someone who might benefit. Small gestures of wisdom multiply when shared. And if you want to continue walking with me on this quest for serenity and inner strength, sign up, because each new reflection is an opportunity to strengthen your mind and live with greater purpose.